Chairman, I have an amendment at the desk.
Clerk will designate the amendment.
Amendment number 7, printed in Part B of House Report number 112-311, offered by Ms. Moore of Wisconsin.
Pursuant to House Resolution 479, the gentlelady from Wisconsin, Ms. Moore, and a member opposed, each will control 5 minutes. Chair recognizes gentlelady from Wisconsin.
Thank you so much, Mr. Chairman. My amendment is very straightforward. It would exempt our nation's veterans from the burdensome layers and hurdles that H.R. 10 imposes and adds to the administrative rulemaking process, and would specifically remove veterans from the bill's so-called reining provisions that require a joint resolution of Congress before an agency puts forth a major rule to help our men and women in uniform when they become veterans and after they return home from service. Many of my colleagues and I disagree with this bill for a variety of reasons, including the author's premise that reducing the administration's ability to regulate and promulgate rules will result in job creation. But whether or not we agree on the direction and approach to best help and promote America's future, we all agree on some things. We all agree that the last thing we want to do is to pass legislation that will delay assistance to those veterans who have selfishly chosen to fight for our country and deserve every ounce of assistance we can provide them when they come back home. Veterans deserve educational opportunity, rehabilitation for sometimes very severe disabilities, Mr. Chairman, mental health treatment for post-traumatic stress disorder, employment opportunities, housing opportunities. And delaying rulemaking authority will have dire consequences for our veterans. For example, Mr. Chair, one very disturbing issue for me has been the high suicides among our service members. Really, we can't delay this kind of assistance. In fact, last year there were more deaths among our troops from suspected suicide than deaths from hostile combat. We're facing an epidemic here at home, too. A recent report from the Center for New American Security noted that 1% of the population has served in the military, and yet those service members represent 20% of all of the suicides in the United States. And resources for the military are sparse. According to a recent Veterans Health Administration survey of mental health providers, 40% responded that they could not schedule a new appointment at their clinic within 14 days. 70% of surveyed facilities cited an inadequate number of staff to treat veterans, and 70% said that they just simply lack space. We also know that there's a serious unemployment barrier among our veterans as they return to civilian life. And the unemployment rate among vets who served in Iraq and Afghanistan since 9/11 is 12.1%, substantially higher than the national average that we're so concerned about now. Unemployment among vets will spike as we end the war in Iraq. The last 20,000 troops are expected to arrive by the end of the year from Iraq. And we can expect about an additional 10,000 veterans from Afghanistan to come home before the end of the year, and 23,000 by the end of 2012. We just can't delay assistance to our veterans. And this has been an area, Mr. Chairman, where Democrats and Republicans have typically come together and agreed. Yet, H.R. 10, the so-called REINS Act, will have unintended consequences and dangerous consequences for veterans who, of course, have received our undying gratitude and support. I really ask my colleagues to consider this amendment and support my amendment, because this is not an area where we want to delay services to them. We don't want to subject our vets to the politics of Washington and a gridlock, hyper-partisan Congress that struggles even to extend unemployment insurance in a recession or a payroll tax to middle-class people, let alone a credit default by something so historically difficult had been as raising the debt ceiling. I just think that Americans will agree with me that our nation's veterans deserve to be excluded from the gridlock that this will invariably cause. Let's come together once more and adopt this amendment, Mr. Chair, not just for the troops that need help now, but for the troops that will be here in the near future. And I reserve the balance of my